guys, Greg at Best Choice Trailers. We just unloaded a truck with 3 40-foot Maxx-Ds on it. I believe this one might be sold, but wanted to go over those with you. This is the LDX model. This comes in a few different setups. You can go 10, 12, or 15,000 pound axles. This has the 15,000 pounders. It's got a handful of options on it. I'll try to touch on those as we go around it. It's a 40-foot trailer, so it's going to be a 35 flat deck, 5-foot dovetail with the full width ramps. Again, 15K axle is going to be rated for 30,000 pounds. This unit's going to weigh in at about 9,500 pounds empty. It's going to give you a roughly 20,000 pound trailer side payload. That doesn't count your tongue weight. Some folks are, what's tongue weight? Well, that's what's going to sit on your truck. And typically we estimate about 22% to the pin. And that would be on a, what I'll call a normal trailer, 25 foot, 28 foot, 30 foot gooseneck. When you go 40, you're going to get more pin weight. Typically, the rule of thumb I like to use would be about 1% from the coupler to your axles. And on a longer trailer, that number is going to get bigger. I would say on this, you're probably at least, say, 33. Typically, you're about 8 foot on your neck, and then whatever distance you've got throughout. So using my rule of thumb, this trailer could actually have upward of 10,000 pounds of tongue weight. That sounds a little bit high. I'd say realistically, a trailer like this, I would not be surprised at all if it had 7,500 pounds, depending on what you've got loaded on it. So as far as actual payload, again, it's going to depend how it's loaded. I'm going to say about 20 to the trailer, and very conservatively, I'll say 65 in the neck would give you about 26.5 on this particular unit. Now, it can be equipped a bunch of different ways, and we'll go over what is optioned on this. One of the things that I think you'll like, pull out toolbox, hydraulic jacks, etc. But let's get to it. Start out up front. So you've got your set bolts up front for your neck, 2 5/16 inch ball. This is the heaviest you can go and be a 2 5/16. Anything heavier would require a 3-inch neck. Fastway zip standard, pretty cool. It's got your adjustability in it instead of your traditional cord. Safety chains in the neck. You've got a fully sealed wire harness, 7-pin plug. Your chains, if you want, you can actually hook up there. This one has a spare tire mounted in the neck, and I do like the way they do their spare mount. Full toolbox up front. It is, of course, lockable. Winch plate in the neck. You've got your, of course, I-beam neck on the vertical and horizontal, and then you've got your doublers going from the vertical, horizontal, and then from your vertical to the side rail. Hydraulic jacks are an option on this. We've put on these. Now, it's interesting. I've seen some different comments or heard some different feedback. These are the same jacks that would go on your 40-foot fifth-wheel campers. Been around a while. Work really well. I see some brands now putting these in a housing enclosure because some guys just, I'll say, maybe aren't impressed with the leg thickness. So the funny part is if you tore apart a hydraulic jack, most don't have that diameter leg on them. The housing is just eye candy. But anyway, we start to see that a little bit in the industry. I believe Diamond C was using these same jacks as well. But very, very nice setup. Clear lens LEDs give it a nice clean look. You've got your serrated side step on both sides. Of course, you've got a rub rail. It's a 1/4-inch rub rail, not your 3/16. Chain spools, stake pockets alternating roughly every 12-inch on center. So here we've got dual side toolboxes. One is, I'll say, partially being used. The other one is fully open. So this has a NOCO 5 amp hour charger. I like NOCO's chargers a little better than some of the others. But again, I guess that's opinion. Interstate deep cycle battery, group 24, KTI pump at the back. Handful of nice little features on these. Wireless remote is on this guy's standard. I like the way they do the wireless on the Tough as well. Lots of little details. Typically, you'd be power up, power down. This also has gravity down if you want to save a little bit. Troubleshooting tip, nice for customers. We'll be happy to answer any questions, but certainly if you're out and you want an answer right away or on the weekend, whatnot, gives you some basic troubleshooting. I will tell you, in my experience, and I get calls fairly frequently. We sell a fair amount of trailers, and it seems like I get a fair amount of the questions on this stuff. But battery is typically, charge your battery. That's typically the answer to most folks' problems, because if you're low voltage on the battery, it just makes it look like there's issues going on that aren't really there. It just needs a battery charge. I believe, kind of hard to see, but this is a neat little detail too on this pump. This guy here is a manual relief, and that's something you don't see on all brands. Kind of hard to see. I got to zoom in. But that, if you see a brass valve on pumps, that's actually a neat detail. Now on this one with the gravity down, you don't really need it because it essentially does the same thing. But that's a bypass. This allows you to come down in a dead battery, low battery situation without losing fluid to the pump. This is a neat little detail too. Now this one I don't think you would need, but they prep these for a second battery setup. So if we had, say, a hydraulic dovetail or something else, maybe. But they already prep them all for a second battery tray, which is nice. Fully adjustable on the toolboxes as well. Kind of neat little detail in the Maxx. This second toolbox has the slide out, which is neat. So basically, you can put all your stuff in there, slide it out. Pierced I-beam, I guess, would be the next thing to point out. So if you don't see the top of an I-beam, it means you're riding at 36-inch deck height. If you see a pierced I-beam, you're going to be riding at about 32. Basically, what you're doing, you're shooting your cross member through the beam instead of sitting it on top. And that's going to lower you down, of course, 3-inch channel for your cross members, but also the height of your wood. So again, you're lowering from a 36 to a 32-inch deck height. Certainly important if you're hauling equipment or anything where it's beneficial to be low to the ground. Next thing, back here by your axles, this is kind of, I'll say, a little more work. They could have easily thrown it in the box up there, but they put electric hydraulic brake actuators in its own separate box, specifically next to the axles. And why would they do that? Less brake lines, so you got a faster response time for your electric hydraulic brakes. So again, owner's manual there. Try to make it easy if somebody's got issues out in the road, whatnot. And of course, a lockable handle. There you can see the front of the HDSS suspension. Try to crawl underneath and get you a better look. If you're not familiar, Google search HDSS or Hutch 9700. The two are pretty similar in how they function and operate. It's just designed for a much heavier service life. There you can actually see the equalizer and see how much heavier it is than a normal slipper spring suspension. The numbers I'm reading on this, it's a 1,000,000-mile service life suspension. I think my quick feedback on HDSS would be, a lot of guys started doing Hotshot before the industry per se was ready for it. Your tandem duals back in the day weren't really equipped for the duty cycle that people started putting them into. And I wouldn't say there was a crazy amount of failures, but again, people did have issues because they were taking trailers that were getting 5, 8, 10, 12,000 miles for local construction and whatnot. Now guys are running them across the country and hauling freight. This is kind of the answer to that. This is a mini semi-style suspension. It's built from high tensile strength steel, so instead of regular, much heavier duty components. You've got an adjustable arm suspension, and it's got 3 heavy duty leaf suspension. See if you can see it. But it's got a heavy 3-leaf suspension, just like, again, Hutch 9700 in the semi industry. Torque tube underneath. Again, you can see pierced I-beam frame. So your cross member's going through your beam. You've also got your outrigger supports. You've also got the underframe bridging underneath that I-beam. And centers on these are 12-inch on center, not your traditional 16. So again, all that make this a pretty stout trailer to be running down the road. Torque tube would be to keep the trailer from twisting and racking in, say, an off-road application, farm field, etc. Somebody going off-road. Underframe bridge, more like a semi where you've got heavy concentrated weight. You put a high point load down, that's going to help distribute that weight to the frame so that there's nowhere you're getting stressed. Mud flaps, standard equipment. It's actually not an option. I say that because a lot of brands it would be an option. 17.5 rubber is standard equipped on the 15K axles. So a lot of times you'll get 14 ply. Here they're going straight to 17.5. Westlake rubber. We don't see much of Westlake anymore. It's a premium tire. Costs a little bit more. A lot of manufacturers don't use it. You see it more in the aftermarket market. Good tire, good rubber. They pay a little bit more for them. That may change over time. Who knows? Maxx may change tire vendors. So if you watch this 3 years from now, might be a different vendor, but for now they're using Westlake. I can vouch. They're, like I said, pretty good stuff. We saw them probably dating back 13 years ago. We saw them. Also want to point out, you've got your heavier Valcrum caps, not your old grease style caps, which is a nice, nice addition. Want to point these out too. A lot of times we'll see Hotshotters, if they trade a trailer in or whatnot, they'll have a strap over it. Maxx takes the time to actually put a latch on, keep it from vibrating going down the road, so you can not have to worry about putting a strap and whatnot on it. Heavy duty tube bumper, nothing formed or whatnot. Extra heavy springs you can see there. You got an extra stop turn tail light that's not required, so they give you some extra visibility. Full width ramps. It's a little stuff. You look how they played out that ramp in your high stress areas. Full seam weld, pretty clean. Again, it's all plated out. That's why we like Maxx on some of these 30K plus trailers. Do a pretty nice job on them. Again, your mud flaps. Got D-rings, 4-inch ring. Here's another detail point out. They actually take I-beam all the way back. This is not how most of the industry is doing this now. So you got I-beam and then it continuous I-beam the rest of the way. You've also got additional runners between your main beams. So again, they've got this plated out a little bit different. 17.5 rubber. In dual configuration, I don't know the exact number, but in singles, those are 4,800 pound of tire. So you do the math, 4,800 pounds, almost 5,000 times 8. Got plenty of tire for your 30K trailer. Up front, you got your D-rings. They put a cutout in the rub rail, so you ain't got to worry about cutting straps. This is available in different lengths. We stock 30,000 more for equipment, 40,000 more for freight and whatnot. But you can get all kinds of different lengths. Again, 10, 12, or 15K axles. Typically, we'll do 10 with electric brakes and then 12 or 15 with hydraulic brakes. For the money difference, the 15s are pretty good value overall. Well, if you have any questions on this, feel free to give us a shout. 717-220-4220, or you can visit us on the web at bestchoicetrailers.com. Thanks for looking.